Thank you for tuning in to No Flag Radio. I'm your host, P. On to some things. Today we talking about iHEART and the Breakfast Club. Dr. Neely Fuller said anything that fills people's mind with garbage, namely black people's mind with garbage, white supremacy is all for that. And iHeart Radio and the Breakfast Club, that's all they've been around for. So I don't want anybody to get fooled into somehow thinking the few political guests that they've brought on this year puts them in a category of constructive conversation and constructive radio. And you can tell they kind of new to it. You can tell how they kind of planned it. A lot of the things that they should be talking about, they toe dipping it and not fully jumping into the pool. They just toe dipping. And I want to frame it in terms of new black media and old black media. Even though iHeart Breakfast Club is the brown black coalition crowd, I want us to declare out loud that the fact that they are stealing our phrases and catch sayings and all of this shows that old black media is aware of what's going on in new black media. First off, case in point was the Kamala Harris video. Once they saw what was going on, they said, hold up, this is not our regular crowd coming through downvoting all of this shit. From that point, they knew, man, we gotta do something. We gotta defend these low ass ratings. We gotta get on whatever the kind of train that came through and hit us. We gotta jump on that train because they hit us hard and they fucked up our views for that fucking video. This is what they saying in the meetings, right? Since that particular interview, they've been on some behavior like, we have to put up a front to the world that we're all of a sudden about seeking sustenance out of the people that come here, especially political figures, and we're about bringing the hard questions now. You understand? This is the attitude that they've taken on since that. I've noticed a change in the attitude, and I don't appreciate it, but I take note, right? Notice every politician that they brought on talking about a black agenda, notice they didn't have any real comebacks for the bull that they were spitting. They really didn't have an arsenal of what to say, or they didn't have many comebacks. They took everything that was being said to them at face value. Notice that. They didn't investigate anything that these guests were coming on talking about. And what's happening is the Breakfast Club iHeart is impostoring like they've been on board with black vitality and black dynamic, and that they've been on board. And I'm just like, cut the shit. They are old black media. And that's what I want y'all to get out of this video. The dead giveaway to me is they got all kind of listeners across all races and persuasions. All genders, all identifiers. That's a telltale sign of who we dealing with. With that all races, everybody hold hands, anybody, everybody, anybody's invited. Yeah. That ain't the way to go when we talking about black issues. That's not what things is really about when it comes down to ADOS type issues, right? So, to the fact, let's start in on iHeart Radio. iHeart Radio is owned by a white dude named Bob Pittman, former CEO of MTV. He's actually the guy that created MTV, the motherfucking creator of the shit. That should show you what kind of interest the top guy at iHeart the Breakfast Club has in black issues. Alright? That should tell you what kind of interest and what kind of give a fuck he has about black people, alright? Motherfucking MTV, okay? Let me just break into a little bit about MTV for y'all. I won't go too deep yet. They had white people doing blackface on a show called The Challenge in 2012. Right? They started the motherfucking Real World, if y'all remember that show, which is just basically a way to make spectacle of black people being around white people who don't know what time it is with black people. You know, sort of playing up the animus that always came with it. It was always a fight or some bullshit, right? They wanted to see the fireworks for ratings' sake. And it was basically some old set up ass show where the black folk would get into it with white people and they kick the black people off. So it's basically a set-up ass show. And I remember we would make jokes about the show like, man, I couldn't be on that show because I would be gone the first day. First time motherfuckers say some stupid shit, some racist shit, or do some gay humor shit that white people are known for, I'm going upside motherfucker head with a brick. Homie, I'm getting kicked off. Straight up. Ain't no testing my limits and you gotta see if you can be in this kind of, ain't no testing my limits going on. I'm just getting kicked off, you understand? What? Set motherfuckers up to get kicked off. Those of you who remember the show, they had a cast member on the show called Jenna. Forget her whole name, but she was a white cast member with just a history of being a racist bitch, right? And she physically assaulted a sister named CJ on the show. And they kicked both people off the show. But the sister was defending herself. She was being physically assaulted by this white girl, and she was defending herself after being physically assaulted. And she got kicked off too. Like, those are decisions made by the top people and people in the middle, sort of, at a big ass company like that. And Bob Pittman helped make that kind of culture prevalent at MTV, who will fire somebody black for defending themselves against being physically attacked. So anyway, I'll get into them a bit later, but back to the facts. iHEART Media used to be named Clear Channel. For those of you who don't remember, Clear Channel was the reason why so much trap hop and garble and shit got onto the radio in the early 2000s. The whole landscape of black music on the radio changed when radio stations started getting scooped up under the Clear Channel umbrella, the iHeart umbrella. They basically turned every city's radio station into Atlanta radio. Trap rapper out of Atlanta radio, alright? And I'm sure, you know, Atlanta might have liked it. You know, everywhere they went, everywhere is absolutely Atlanta. Everywhere I go, it's all Atlanta all day. I mean, I guess they might have liked that shit, but alright. We didn't like it, Atlanta. I'm just letting y'all know. It ain't nothing against y'all, but it's like, damn. Come on, man. What's up with the regionality of music? What's up with the regions and the different areas? How can we get a flavor going on of everybody? Can we get everybody's flavor in the mix? What's kind of the feeling? So Clear Channel, they started buying up everything on the radio side. And at this point, they own about 1,000 radio stations. Over 1,000 radio stations at one time. Damn near all the radio stations that are available in motherfucking America. And that means a lot when you're talking about what's being programmed into the minds of a listening audience, especially black people, the people I care about. And what Clear Channel had was a clear monopoly on the content that young black people would listen to. That kind of goes to my point that I made in the beginning about what Dr. Neely Fuller said. And Clear Channel, they chose fuckery over hip-hop. We won't just blanket hip-hop in it because hip-hop got some bullshit in it too. But I'm saying to choose one brand of fuckery over all brands of fuckery, just exclusively, 24/7, and no diversity, no breaking it down into non-fuckery, when there's no break in the fuckery. And that was the problem with Clear Channel's programming. You understand me? That should show you what they thought about the black mind space and what they wanted to perpetuate on the black mind space. So take note, Clear Channel was giving subpar entertainers a stage, really feeding the black community all the swill and the slop of our community back to us on a lot of airway space. And DJs was taking money to do so. It was very much a payola game in the radio industry. Once or after Atlanta got the chance to set the tone, it was like, oh, you want to get on? Well, sound like Atlanta and pay and you good. Basically. And when in 2014, Clear Channel couldn't run that scam no more on the people, basically, once people wouldn't pay to get on the radio and the kids had thoroughly decided, independent is going to be the way to go, and digitally pushing your own content, and that you should come pre-packed with an audience, and that should be what puts them on the radio and gets them their shows and does this and that for them. Clear Channel said, wait, the niggers are trying to cut us out and cut our radio out? Well, we'll just adopt a digital strategy as a way to infiltrate that market. And they changed their name to iHEART Radio. They made the acquisition under iHeart Media. So, digging a little deeper, iHeart Radio filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy last year. There were $20 billion in the hole. And Chapter 11 bankruptcy, y'all know that's the restructuring bankruptcy, where you kind of restructure your assets and look at what you own and try to put some of the debt into hands of other entities. The math came out in the early figures that, the people who owned 90% of the company and owned 90% of the debt, they turned out to own about 1% of the company and 1% of the debt. That's when they had the whole $20 billion. Now they've whittled it down and made some restructuring and whittled it down to $16.1 billion. And then recently in January, it's been whittled down to $5 billion. That's what a restructuring does. So at current, they own about 800 stations, 850 stations, though it used to be that 1,000 plus that I talked about. I'm gonna bring all this in for a smooth landing. Y'all just stay buckled in. But this is the same outfit. On top of their money problems, they were censoring songs and material on the radio that was critical of George Bush, the son, back in the day. So to see an entity called the Breakfast Club, one of their assets, caping for Kamala Harris on MSNBC so they can take a stab at Fox News and that type of shit like I reported on. And Fox is a supporter of Bush and the whole Bush family. It goes to show the Breakfast Club and a quote-unquote black entity like the Breakfast Club, the black-brown coalition crowd, just falling under White Daddy's umbrella, all because he showed up with an umbrella. You might not always know who you fucking with. You know what I mean? Just raising your hand up whenever White Daddy say, hey, who needs something? Who the Negro that needs something? Can have you under the wings of a motherfucker who really don't fuck with your black ass. I say that to make a roundabout point, to see the Breakfast Club be as lame as they are in the music sphere and in the interview of politicians game and the faking like they have a black agenda on their mind type of radio station game going on out there. White Daddy looking, White Daddy at iHeart is watching that bullshit, you Negroes, and they're gonna demand you get back to your slave quarters. Bob Pittman is gonna demand that, you Negroes. That's no bullshit. And it's obvious what's up. You can tell by who they bring on the show. To see a motherfucker like Van Jones get on the Breakfast Club show and talk his spiel about prison reform. To see Bernie Sanders come up there and do it multiple times. Andrew Yang come up there and do it. Like that's the only thing that is weighing on black people. The Breakfast Club set that kind of tone, and iHeart Media, they set that kind of tone. That's the type of shit that they want being heard across their airwaves. That's what they think affects their target audience the most. Prison. Not no black agenda. Just a bunch of rapping in prison. You see what I'm saying? To see them try to fake like they've been down with the call for having a black agenda and that they got all this depth to them, it's an insult. They're the black and Latino gutterish entertainment crowd, but they ain't no black agenda crowd. All right, it's two totally different, unrelated areas of engagement involved in trying to cover those two different grounds. When looking at those two grounds, all right, they the black-brown coalition crowd. You ignorant if you don't vote crowd. Not the bet you're a politician crowd. You see what I'm saying? So we know they pulling bullshit. My point is to make sure the Breakfast Club and iHeart Radio know that we not gonna let them just okey doke us and pretend like they've been down with the cause. They're merely taking cues from new black media on what to say. Period. On what they need to value. And I don't want nobody on my channel to get comfortable with that shit over there, because it ain't gonna last long. This is not a pro-black people owner that's running iHeart or the Breakfast Club. This is the same outfit, iHeart Media, that co-signed all these cooning ass guests being pulled off on their show in the past month. But there's so many real black guests that they can invite that get ignored. Just like how Clear Channel did radio. They have an agenda. You understand? That's what I'm trying to get at. They have an agenda. And their money is still funny at iHeart. When your money funny, you go for safe bets and things that you know are predictable. What's a safe bet in white supremacist society to a company like iHeart, who's over a young outfit like the Breakfast Club just trying to be on the scene, that feel proud because they under white daddy? A safe bet is actions that perpetuate white supremacist interests and status quos. And iHeart Radio is looking like an organization that's gonna put all and any black talk on a radio network like the Breakfast Club on a timer. Like, you can keep it up for a little bit, but our racist heart and our debt that we have, you know, one thing about white supremacy is it don't matter if they're doing bad financially, they'll ride white supremacy to the grave. White supremacy is their religion. They like, you know, y'all can keep that shit up for a little bit, Breakfast Club, but don't do too much, cause iHeart really don't like y'all black asses. That, and they looking for a reason to get rid of some assets that ain't doing what they say, that ain't producing what they want produced. So don't get to thinking that the Breakfast Club can make any sudden turns around this bitch. Any unsanctioned moves. iHeart has all kind of talk radio, sports radio, country, top 40, rock. They already got that in their arsenal. But they have very few urban stations. I'm talking about few. When I say few, I'm talking about like 5 or 6. Very few. Urban, hip hop, R&B, like urban adult contemporary type stations under their umbrella anyway, as it is. And just like the saying go, black people are the last one hired, the first one fired. That shit can beat they ass at the Breakfast Club. iHeart really don't come from a stock of people that fuck with black people seeing ourselves a step or two better, right? That's not what iHeart come from. Bob Pittman is really hard-headed about getting certain content out. You know, that was the whole thing about MTV back in the day. Like, he wanted MTV to be a rock network. He wouldn't play Michael Jackson. He wouldn't play Rick James. Rick James was the first one to call it out. Like, look, man, this is a racist-ass motherfucking network. Y'all don't even play black people that got all this crossover appeal. Rick James called it out. Then by the time Billie Jean dropped, Bob Pittman had to acquiesce, but by that time Mike Jackson had already called him racist. And Bob Pittman's answer to all of the shit, all these accusations of it being a racist entity that they were, shutting out these black records that were selling big. before they got on, they were selling pretty decently without no MTV. His answer was, well, MTV is a rock station. He was hard-headed about it. Like, this is all about rock, and I don't think that the urban and ethnic, I don't think that is gonna be able to be. He didn't think it would be digested by white people in the Midwest and in the suburbs type shit. This is what he was talking. I don't think it would fit on a rock station. We're just about rock, right? He wanted it to be rock, rock, rock. And I was too young to remember it. This was like in '83. But I'm sure the black community was like, motherfucker, black folk created rock. So what you talking about, white boy? When we show up with whatever we show up with, motherfucker, play it, bitch. You know what I'm saying? You white. You ain't create shit. This rock that you in love with, we created it, punk. You understand? So when we show up, you already know we finna bring some heat that your punk ass need to be listening to. Play the shit, bitch. You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm sure Mike Jackson and Rick James probably thinking about at that time. But he was hard-headed about it. Wanted to lock out black people and only wanting to hear rock on the network. I say that to say that, one thing about being in a white supremacist society, old white males, they are stuck usually in that little pod of logic that they came up with. All right, so 30 years later, almost 40 years later, his mind state is, look, this is one of the biggest Negro stations, the Breakfast Club shit, but I still want you guys to produce what I think needs to be disseminated. He's still on that train. He's on some keep it straight, goofy, doofus shit as your predominant content. And don't make no sudden moves, Negroes. We count on you at the Breakfast Club, right? We count on you at the Breakfast Club to be about our dollar bill, not about them Negroes, though. And what I think the Breakfast Club doesn't see is, while they down with iHeart Radio, is that iHeart just wants their audience of blacks and Latinos. That's the only reason Bob Pittman decided to put Michael Jackson on the station, on the network MTV. The only reason he decided in the same summer to put Donna Summers, She Works Hard for the Money, on MTV. The only reason he decided to put Lionel Richie and shit like that on his network back in the day. He just wanted that black and Latino audience, or that black audience. And there was a fine line between black and Latino music back in the day, but Latinos, they was jocking our nuts back then. Whatever we did, they would predominantly follow our nuts. Whatever our nuts did, whatever direction our nuts swung, Latinos would hang on to them to swing in that direction. All right? Let's just keep that shit real. First of all. But iHeart just wants their audience of blacks and Latinos. That's what the shit is. They the new kid on the block in terms of black and Latino radio. That's really, kind of hot or whatever. And iHeart is audience jacking. And what my prediction is the Breakfast Club, as they continue their association with iHeart Radio, they're gonna get that nigga moment soon. Because they're on a sinking ship that ain't about no black shit. The people who run your show, not about no black benefiting shit. And you got an old white CEO that owns your shit that's temperamental and really don't like black people. And he'll flip if y'all's programming loses the value that he thinks that he's trying to get out of the situation. The brown black audience, and just kind of some humdrum ass shit on the station is kind of what he wants to keep up there. He don't want it to be the black power station. The Breakfast Club can't be the black power station, you understand? That's why I say they're old black media. They're trapped in that box because of their paymasters. They have white racist paymasters, if you want to look down into the soul of who a Bob Pittman is, you understand? So as they start yapping about a black agenda with these politicians that come on the show, that they all of a sudden freshly started doing, you can bet they gonna be back on their bullshit soon. They're gonna be back on their water level soon. It's been shit that's been going on that can usher them right back into their water level. The boy, what's his name? YBN Almighty. We just got slashed in the face not too long ago, just got robbed and all this shit. And the whole thing with Jay Prince. So now, shit like that. They're gonna bring YBN on the show. They're gonna bring Jay Prince on the show. They're gonna get back to some fuckery and goofy shit, water level shit soon. I can already feel it. It's new shit for them to get on that's goofy. And they're gonna cash in on it so they can keep the humdrum going on at the Breakfast Club. On to their audience. I mean, goddamn, I think we can, since I brought that up, I think we can all take a look at their guests for the past 5 years and see the frequency that they've been keeping up. It's rappers that ain't about shit substantial, reality TV show motherfuckers that ain't about shit, and what? They might bring on some comedians, right? Or some athletes or a health coach twice a year. They had our ancestor Dick Gregory on 2 years ago. And they had Umar Johnson ass on 3 years ago. But, I mean, come on. The majority of what they do is the mainstream nothingness. So I want to make the point that they're out of the league of their audience with real community building talk constantly and black forward progress constantly on their station. I have to stress that. So people who are new to their content or maybe new to the Breakfast Club because you might have searched out an interview about a political figure and they pulled up or whatever. They've been on bullshit. That's the way I'm gonna clue you in on what they do. They've been on bullshit. And iHeart will see to it that they don't get an audience full of deep people. You understand? That's what always comes to these mixed bag audiences, is that you're not gonna get everybody on board with black first kind of material, especially when you all of a sudden change and start talking black agenda and black people getting something only we are owed and getting tangibles at local, state, and federal levels of government, right? All the racist trolling is gonna come out of your audience. And that's what you saw in interviews like the Andrew Yang interview and the Bernie Sanders interviews. If you watch those, all that's left is for their audience to drag the station back down to an acceptable level of partying bullshit like Bob Pittman won't. The level of partying bullshit that they're used to. Stay at their water level or find another station, because guarantee you, as soon as the Breakfast Club shows their audience, their current audience, just a little bit that they back to their regularly scheduled programming, I bet by the end of the year, they'll be all the way back to that Roland Martin speak, calling people ignorant for not voting. They audience don't want no fight with white supremacy. No pause of white supremacy. And you can tell by what iHeart has been offering, happy to offer them. And the Breakfast Club has been happily playing ball with it. That's the lollygag water level. We saw it with the Bakari Sellers interview when he came out caping for Kamala Harris and her policy of locking up parents for a kid being truant from school. He came out playing that, oh, Kamala's a black woman, and everybody picking on the black woman in the campaign. The host of the show, Charlamagne, Angela Yee, Envy, they ain't want no fight. And then when the question came up about, she's a side piece for Willie Brown, he was dismissing that she was a thought side piecing for Willie Brown, dismissing her white husband, shit that would go over well with a mixed bag ass, confused ass audience, right? The iHeart Breakfast Club audience, they don't got the courage to demand as an audience that, hey, black people need to exclusively look out for self, no matter who is in our face, no matter who's saying they finna do what. And whatever you kicking on your airwaves need to be about pressing people. If you claiming you on some black agenda with everybody that walk through the door, don't front on us, you know what I'm saying? Don't do that shit. Just gonna piss motherfuckers off. They don't got a real research team. All they got is people who go on gossip sites and look for gossip, rumors and shit. That's the type of interns they got over there. They've even let a couple of them on camera before. It's like some real airhead dumbbell looking interns. And in terms of questioning and pressing the guests that they have that want to position themselves favorably amongst the audience, because it's all a PR move when you go on radio. You're trying to win over an audience. Sadly to say, the Breakfast Club reputation for tomfoolery precedes them, and it's already a cloud over them to the people that show up. You know what I mean? To all the damn guests. People don't take their content seriously when they try to get serious all of a sudden. You know, a motherfucker that will be jokey all day, but then one day they try to be serious, you be like, man, shut that shit up, man. That's who the Breakfast Club is until they prove themselves otherwise to me. You know, I remember for a long time, Charlemagne was just so bad with the guests. I'm just giving him as an example. But he had people antsy just to come on the show. And you know, because he's kind of been the guy that people have put him in a box as the dude that's going to say some fucked up shit or ask some fucked up shit to make people want to slap him type shit. Don't forget, they used to do these Charlemagne crazy shit that he says compilations, and that was a draw for a long time. That built their reputation for being, you know, kind of brash, right? It was him saying or asking some shit that it'll normally get spit slapped out of somebody's mouth if he wasn't on radio. I'm saying he made Lil Mama cry, and motherfuckers never forgave him for that shit, right? But iHEART Breakfast Club has already set a tone that's more of the jovial side, make light of shit side of radio. And when you decide all of a sudden, like they did, to make it your business to approach black issues and black topics, ain't shit funny. Dummy, is what I gotta say. And I think their audience is just beyond repair, to the point that when you put serious stuff in front of them, or a set of varying type people in front of them, they can't really tell what's what or who's who. So because they can't really use their brain power, or are not really used to using their brain power to discern what is what or who is who, or what they're really trying to promote in front of them, it's like they provide low resistance. They're a low resistance audience to who's in front of them. Their audience is the Bernie Sanders is good enough crowd. Man, if you read those comments from when they had him on, the motherfucking Coons was like, man, y'all went hard on Bernie, but y'all gave Kamala the easy questions. Like really playing the violin for Bernie with a little mixed bag audience type shit. You know what I mean? That's the mixed bag coming out. Well, you know, if you think about it, Kamala had no policy for black society, and we sniffed her out. And they got low ratings on that video because ADOS showed up to cast some intellectual stones out of her forehead. And New Black Media, you know, what the fuck? We're gonna keep doing the same with Bernie, but understand, hemming and hawing is the water level that everybody knows they can bring to the Breakfast Club. They've already branded themselves with a lot of low vibrating content, courtesy of iHeartRadio wanting to see them put out bullshit. And now people know they can just come through to the Breakfast Club and wipe their feet on whatever they think they want to throw their way. Especially the people in politics that come on. They know the Breakfast Club is a soft shoe bunch. They asked Bernie this time, and he had been on before. Bernie, he came on about 3 years ago. But this time he showed up, they asked him, you know, what about black people? He said, I'm gonna stand with African Americans against racism and against a broken criminal justice system, right? He couldn't stop himself from throwing black people under the criminal bus, right? And Bernie did the same thing 3 years ago when he came through to the Breakfast Club, talking about how, you know, people get police records for possessing certain drugs, and he was talking about getting certain drugs off the controlled substances list. Talking about how black people were and are disproportionately targeted for sentencing, and as a result, we have records due to what we know as racialized sentencing. He didn't say that, but he the motherfucker that stood behind those provisions on drug criminalization in the damn 1994 crime bill. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 from the damn Clinton. He the one that stood behind the provisions of drug criminalization. And so y'all know Bernie's thing is, well, there was a lot of stuff in the bill. He always says that, interview after interview. That's Bernie's thing. No matter who he interviewing with, he always say, well, it was a lot of stuff in the bill. And y'all will notice, since the black community been jumping down his throat about that bill, he always says, well, you know, there was a provision on assault weapons that I liked. He always runs that assault weapons thing on black people. Like, everybody black just walking around with AR-15s and AK-47s, just on the way to the local rec every day, on the way to the motherfucking McDonald's, on the way to the grocery store. Like, you know what I'm saying? Those large assault weapon provisions in the bill, those mainly affected your white school shooters. That's what that shit was about. Yet nobody from the iHEART Breakfast Club jumped down his throat. He brought it up with no contest. And y'all know Bernie spent his whole career on news station after news station, news outlet after news outlet, defending the bill on the small grounds of assault weapons. Like the rest of the world couldn't see that the rest of that bill was complete and utter fuckery. I know it's a lot of pages in the bill, Bernie, 300-something page bill, but how do you explain never speaking about the lengthening of prison sentences element? Never speaking about the encouraging states to lengthen the sentences for these drug type offenses, non-violent offenses. Never speaking on taking education programs out of the prison so when people get out they have life skills that they can play in the world. Never speaking on expanding the death penalty. Never speaking on 3 strikes. And they try to make that seem like that's for repeat offenders, but I challenge you to find white people who got locked up on 3 strikes. Show me the white male or female doing tall ass numbers off of 3 strikes. 50, 60, 70 years. Show me that white person right now. You can't. Never speaks on private prisons and how they were really getting a hold back during this time. And like I always say, white supremacist society, they don't build prisons for their sons and daughters. Put that shit together. Bernie ain't talk about how the Violence Against Women Act that was a part of this crime bill also was targeted towards black men getting locked up for domestic violence. I can't think of one white male that's been locked up for domestic violence under the Violence Against Women Act. Those were targeted laws to fuck up the black home after some impoverishing shit went down or some animosity shit went down. Targeting us for crippling, but not targeting anybody else to the same extremity. People can miss me with the talk about that bill, and y'all might also find it interesting, but not surprising at the same time. Little off topic, but the Congressional Black Caucus, the Brigade of Coons, was 10 toes down with this crime bill. The Congressional Black Caucus that's full of non-ADOS blacks today. It's the same motherfucking faces. Back in 94 was Kwesi Mfume and Charlie Rangel. Now it's Kamala Harris, Antonio Delgado, and they even got a fat white dude a part of the Congressional Black Caucus these days. What's his name? I can't think of his name. I guess that's another discussion for, maybe I'll do a video on the HR 40 bill for reparations, but Bernie ain't been about black people, man, in policy. And he went on to Andrew Yang speak. This was in his same 2016 interview with the Breakfast Club, talking about taxing companies to pay for making jobs by taxing the big earners on Wall Street type shit, right? But no black agenda, no talk of reparations, right? The Breakfast Club wasn't in orbit of that topic, and Bernie damn sure wasn't prepared for no shit like that. Some black agenda talk. And this year, the Breakfast Club brought him back. That's the point I want to get to that was so funny about the shit. They brought him back this year to press him for a black agenda, which was what really had him pissed off the whole interview. Because he was like, hey, I thought I had you niggas in check from 2016. What's up with all these motherfucking questions and shit? I mean, he was really bristling up the whole interview like, hey, what gives? I thought I could just sit on stage with Killer Mike for 15 minutes like I did in 2016, and that'd be enough for your mixed bag iHeart Radio brown black coalition audiences. And oh, that was new black media, by the way, that made it into black American culture everywhere to put a hard line of questioning to the political candidates, period. Especially putting it into orbit over there at iHeart, the Breakfast Club. We should always and will always take credit for doing that. But I mean, yo, his disdain for black people with this interview, with the questions and the demands. Because, you know, they've been kind of running these questions and demands from politicians over the past few weeks, just trying to work it into the questioning. So Bernie, he's the last main interview they got. So they've kind of been able to kind of refine it down now. So he was getting all the hard questions, basically. He was getting all the questions and demands. I won't say they were hard questions. He was getting all the real questions and demands. And his disdain for black people with the questions and demands was really peeking through during this interview. Hard. You know, fucking attitude. But what did he have different than a couple years ago? Nothing. It's the same criminal reform and Andrew Yangisms. Taxing companies to help everybody. Taxing companies to help everybody get. And everybody have. But again, the Breakfast Club wouldn't bring it up to him unless new black media put it into the social sphere. We got to take credit for that. Putting it to the brain of the politicians about us getting what is owed to us out of the political process, or no vote, period. That was us. iHeart Radio, Breakfast Club, y'all don't get to eclipse our motherfucking work. Especially when we got proof as to what y'all really been on since y'all started 7 years ago. But that's my point, y'all. If y'all wanna, if y'all got young people in y'all family, you gotta brief them on the Breakfast Club and iHeart and the figures that they have that run the show and the figures that they just gotta bring on. They gotta bring the bullshit. They gotta bring the non-constructive black content. You gotta bring up the history of the agenda of the father of their station. You understand? And don't forget to bring up MTV, man. Goddamn. Rick James was like, man, I'm selling more than all the white dudes you got on the damn station. And peace to our ancestor Rick James, man. But, he was like, look, man, we got Earth, Wind & Fire, Stevie Wonder, the Gap Band, Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye. These folks got good videos. And Bob Pittman was like, well, you can't go too far into black music. Or country music even. He tried to throw country in there. You know what I mean? Or else you'll just alienate your audiences, which really just likes rock. You know what I mean? But you don't know. Motherfuckers that fuck with rock fuck with everything else too. And like I said, Mike Jackson blew up, and by the end of the decade, they was kicking Yo MTV Raps and shit. A black forum, or whatever they called. A black kind of forum. Meant to pull in black viewers. And of course, white people, Latinos, Asians, all these other crowds. You notice everybody else comes pre-packed with our viewership. Once we show up somewhere and once we sanction something that's cool, right? That's what happened. And we were responsible for taking MTV over the top. Getting all those other audiences they wouldn't have had otherwise. The Asian viewer, the Latino viewer that wasn't into no motherfucking rock. We helped MTV blow. And before I get out of here, I want to say this, that Bob Pittman, the owner of iHeart, his racism and stonewalling black artists was the main reason BET had to exist. So when you get coons like Stacey Dash saying, why did we need BET? Motherfucking Bob Pittman, the motherfucker that own iHeart Radio and own the Breakfast Club and own all the coonery that come out of there and is responsible for keeping that shit in play. So like I said, just wait for that whole ship over there to get back to its water level. It won't be long. It won't be long. And fuck with New Black Media. We where the fuck is that? If we had a radio station, goddammit, in New Black Media, I'm sure y'all will fuck with it on my channel. Shit, if we had some shit like that, right? But look, don't forget to check out my Teespring. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. So you know when I'm dropping. Get it, y'all.